What if, in the middle of the night, someone whispered, "Open the door," in a house you thought you were alone in? What if someone was watching you and only you could hear them? And what if it was a child? Emily had moved into her late grandmother's old apartment after her father died. The building, tucked away in a quiet corner of Chicago, hadn't changed since the early 1900s. Inside, it felt like time had frozen. The wooden stairs creaked under every step, and cracks along the walls twisted into ghostly shapes in the dark. The first night felt normal, until 3:33 a.m. Emily jolted awake. No sound had stirred her, just a creeping sense of unease that curled in her stomach like smoke. Her eyes focused on the faint yellow light leaking from under her bedroom door. The hallway should have been pitch black. There were no motion lights in this place. She got up, quietly walked toward the door. Her fingers hovered near the knob, then she heard it. A whisper. Faint at first, then clearer. One word, "Open." Emily's pulse quickened. She dropped to her knees and peeked through the crack beneath the door. Her breath caught. A child stood there. But the child was facing away, and completely still. Emily pulled back from the door, barely breathing. Fear slithered through her veins like ice. A child. But why was a child standing there at 3:33 in the morning? And why wasn't it moving? "This isn't right," she whispered to herself. She turned to head back to bed, then heard a metallic click. It came from the keyhole. Something slid slowly under the door. She hesitated, then bent down to pick it up. A folded piece of yellowed paper. The texture felt dry, ancient. One shaky sentence was written on it. "I'm not it. Please help me." Emily's eyes widened. This couldn't be a prank. No one knew she was here. She didn't know a single soul in the building. She peeked through the crack again. The child was gone. The hallway remained dark. But something had changed. Then came the whisper. From inside the wall, as if it were crawling out of the brickwork itself. "Only you can hear me, Emily." Emily stepped back. That voice, it was trembling, tired, and familiar, like a memory trying to break through the fog. And then it hit her. It sounded just like her mother's. But her mother had died years ago, and Emily had never lived in this building before. Emily dropped the note. Her heart was pounding so hard it echoed in her ears. Her hands trembled. For a moment, the silence in the apartment felt alive. She pressed her ear against the wall. Nothing. But something deep inside her whispered. It came from there. She slowly stepped back, walked over to the window. The streetlights outside were still on, but the road below was completely empty. For a brief second, it felt like the whole city had vanished. She moved into the living room. Darkness, stillness. But then something was off. One of the armchairs had been moved. Emily lived alone. No one else had touched that chair. She approached it slowly. Behind it, on the wall, a hole. Tiny, about the size of a coin. She leaned forward and peered into it, and saw it. A single eye, staring back. But it wasn't quite human. The pupil was unnaturally small. It looked like a child's eye, but empty, devoid of any life, as if it existed solely to watch. Emily stumbled back. She looked again. The eye was gone. Then came the voice. This time louder, clearer. It echoed through the apartment, not from the wall, but from the spare bedroom across the hall. "It wants to speak with you." Emily turned. That room had been locked since she moved in. She didn't even know where the key was. But not... The door was open, and something inside was looking out. Emily instinctively stepped back. The room beyond the open door was shrouded in shadow. The light switch didn't work. She had already tried it. She swallowed hard. She shouldn't step inside, and yet something pulled her forward. Was it curiosity? Or was it the eye? The way it had stared, cold, fixed. She crossed the threshold. The room still looked empty. An old bed, a dusty dresser, a cracked window. But the air, it felt different, colder. Much colder than the rest of the apartment. When she exhaled, her breath misted. Emily scanned the room slowly. Her eyes caught on something odd, a wooden panel on the far wall that looked newer than the rest. She walked over. It was loose, She slipped her fingers into the gap and pulled. The boards creaked open. Behind them, just a small cavity, a few inches deep, and inside, a stuffed teddy bear. One of its eyes was missing. The fabric was scorched in places as if singed by fire. In its lap, another note. Emily's hands trembled as she unfolded it. He locked me in here. He's not a child. He never was. Just then, the door slammed shut behind her. Emily gasped, but no sound came out. The dark pressed in like a weight. As her eyes adjusted, she saw movement in the corner of the room. Small, slender, head tilted sideways, watching her. Emily was frozen in place. The figure in the corner hadn't moved, but something in the room had shifted. The air had grown colder, heavier. The floor trembled slightly, like something was moving underneath. Emily tried to lift her foot. Nothing. It felt nailed to the ground. The figure slowly raised its head. Then came a whisper. Different from before, this one seemed to bypass her ears entirely, tunneling straight into her mind. "You know my name." "Don't you?" Emily instinctively shook her head. But the voice didn't stop. "Say it. Say my name." "I'll let you go." Panic surged through her. She turned and lunged for the door. Grabbed the knob, locked. The whisper changed. It hissed now, sharper, hungrier. "If you don't, I'll take you too." Emily squeezed her eyes shut. "No," she whispered. "No, I don't believe you." And then she felt it. A hand around her wrist. But it wasn't a child's hand. The nails were long, the skin icy, and the fingers, too many. Emily tried to scream, but nothing came out. The walls felt like they were closing in. The entire house seemed to inhale and then hold its breath. Then another voice, a woman's voice, clear, commanding, from outside the room. "Emily, step back." Emily turned her head toward the wall. Light was leaking from behind the wooden panel. She had to decide, right now. Stay and say the name, or reach for the light. Emily, that freezing hand still gripping her wrist, summoned every ounce of courage and stepped toward the panel. She pressed it open with shaking fingers. The gap widened. The light grew stronger. Behind her, the creature began to growl. A low, garbled voice twisting words into something unrecognizable. "Come back. I won't let you finish me." But Emily wasn't afraid anymore. The voice wasn't just sound, it was memory. Like something from childhood. Her mother used to say, "The dark can't swallow you if you walk through it first." Behind the panel, the space expanded. First, it looked like a narrow tunnel. Then a room. Then someone. A woman stepped forward from the light. Emily recognized her. That face, that presence. Her mother. But how? The woman looked tired, but her eyes were full of warmth. She reached out her hand. "Come on, Emily. If you stay, it'll never let you go." Emily looked back one last time. The figure in the shadows had shifted. It was no child now. Its body stretched unnaturally, its eyes black and hollow. It had never been a child. The light flared. Emily grabbed her mother's hand and stepped out. Suddenly, she was at the front door of the apartment. Dawn was breaking. Everything was still. But the notes were still in her hand, and behind the door a whisper remained. "It's not over yet." Emily closed the front door behind her. She dropped the notes to the floor and leaned against the frame. The first light of morning was streaming through the windows, but that light didn't feel peaceful. It felt wrong. Then she noticed the mirror, standing in the corner of the living room. She didn't remember it being there. Tall, cracked at the edges, faded with spiderweb-like marks across the glass. Emily stepped toward it. Her reflection stared back, but something was off. The moment their eyes met, the reflection didn't blink. She turned around. No shadow. Looked back at the mirror. The reflection was still staring. But it wasn't standing in the same position anymore. Emily hadn't moved. But the reflection tilted its head slightly to the side. Just like the child at 3:33 a.m. Emily stepped back. The reflection stepped forward. This wasn't a mirror. This was a window. And someone was watching from the other side. At that moment, a sound echoed from the kitchen. A deep metallic clang. Emily tore her eyes from the mirror and walked slowly toward the kitchen. On the stovetop, a pot lid was trembling. And on the floor, Footprints. Wet. Small. There were no footprints going into the kitchen. Only out. Emily stared at the wet footprints on the kitchen floor. She stepped back. Her heart resumed that dreadful rhythm. Danger. The prints stretched from the center of the kitchen to the living room. But there was no starting point. No trail leading in. They had simply appeared. Then a whisper. Not from the mirror. From behind her. Emily. She turned slowly. The reflection was still in the mirror, but it wasn't her anymore. It looked like her, but the lips didn't move. Only the eyes, wide, dark, unblinking. Then the reflection pressed its hands against the glass and started pushing. The mirror trembled. Emily stepped back, but the figure stepped forward. The glass no longer looked like glass. It looked like a curtain. She didn't hear a scream, only an echo. I came out, but you stayed. Emily closed her eyes, tried to run. Her legs wouldn't move. She took one last breath. And then, the reflection vanished. The apartment fell silent. Morning light spilled onto the walls. No sound, no trace. And Emily was gone. Her shoes still sat by the door. The notes scattered across the floor. But in the mirror, a new reflection appeared. A child, head tilted to the side. And one last whisper, who's next?